Is Matt there? Let's see.
Matt's here.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna start this charter review committee Monday, 8/12/24, 5:30 in the town manager's office. Roll call. Julian Gaudi's here.
Bragdon present. Wally Paul here.
Lou Pelletier here on Zoom.
Bob Higgins via Zoom.
Paul Higgins via Zoom. That's it. The members of the charter. So, we're gonna review, the minutes for the 10/18/2023 and the 7/22/2024 minutes.
10/18, we don't have. 7/22, I sent out about an hour ago. So
Oh.
people haven't had time. to
Another
review
one
it.
I didn't get done.
I just sent that out about an hour.
We'll review them the next meeting then. Hey, review updates from legal.
Thank you.
Hoping.
The last meeting, Dr. Lang was kind enough to meet with me. And I think the last time we spoke, there was a concept that I don't think I made clear enough to you. And that is when the school budget is passed through whatever process we use, but it's final. The school committee pretty much has the authority to spend that budget. The exception would be very large grants. It's a problem if the money doesn't come in, but we're just talking about the regular school. Patients in the state. So if the school department sends a warrant over here, and I guess payroll is the best example, isn't paid. Town of Millinocket is in violation of state and federal statutes that require you pay employees in a timely manner. So this relates to the charter amendment that the school cannot spend its surplus until the audit's been completed. There is also a state statute that says unexpended funds in the school budget will be carried forward. Doesn't say anything about audits. So it would be unclear situation to add a requirement to what's in the state law. Okay. So something of that nature, these budget requirements, rather than amend the charter and open up a Pandora's box of issues, maybe the thing to do is to talk with the school department, and maybe we could, to address the concerns of the committee, and if the council agrees on those concerns, come up with a memorandum of understanding between the two elected bodies to just address your concerns and provide a method to resolve things if problems come up. Obviously, you've done that in the past. We could have a more concrete methodology to resolve these issues. And then it would be very nice to have the input of both bodies into that. But I guess what I'm saying is that if the budget's been approved and a warrant comes over here, hell will freeze over before I would advise the town treasurer not to pay a legitimate bill incurred by the school department. Okay? Because once again, if those bills aren't paid, and there's a problem within the structure of town government, that's not a person's problem to do that money. They're going to look to the town of Millinocket. And we don't want to violate any laws, especially on things like payroll issues. And we don't want to not follow, pretty clear law. Now, once again, you can dispute the school budget up until it's finally approved, but once it's approved, we have to follow that budget. Okay, so having said that, I thought it would be very helpful for Dr. Lane to come over and give you her perspective on changes to 402 on the qualifications of the school board members, though I don't think those are particularly controversial. And then on 404 and 405B, which I think I've given everybody copies.
I do need copies. I do need copies.
And then, what's the section where you want to change? Have them put in the charter that there'll be so many public meetings and they'll get you a proposed budget on a certain timeline, so forth. Once again, I think those might be appropriate subject matters in a memorandum of understanding between the council and the school board as opposed to a charter. Amendment. But don't you go over and give them your views.
Sure. I think you did a very good job explaining the latter part, so we'll just start out at the beginning if that works.
Sure.
So we have had a couple of meetings out here, and we haven't really had, since we met, I guess it was in August of 23 and then in September of 23, we haven't really had anything that hasn't like felt palatable, something that wouldn't work. So I guess that said, with the qualifications for membership of the board, I'm fine with it mirroring or looking like the qualifications of the council. There isn't anything there that seems prohibited to finding quality people or people that would serve. And it seems like if you folks for the council side, if this language feels like it would bring you a good candidate, then I can't see why it wouldn't bring the school a good candidate. Make sense? Okay. And then you said 404?
405.
405, okay.
And I have not prepared a draft. Say that the school board will prepare a budget estimates in detail. A draft budget will be provided to counselors and the public prior to the school board budget workshops to be sent out with the public notice and apparently of the workshop.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't know what process you've been.
right. So we're good with that too. I've only been here the 2 years, and the first year, we were under a little bit of stress with the rest. So to tell you that we were, making adjustments and cranking out the budget with moments before meeting, kind of like an hour ago, right? Okay, we were there. But this past year, I think we were able to kind of get a handle on it a little bit quicker. But I will say, if you felt that it was important to set a certain amount of time or a certain amount of days or whatnot before we were able to have a conversation about a budget, I will say that we're actually making adjustments right up until, because you just don't always know. And a good example of that would be, say our health insurance is one of those things that I'm telling the council about, like, well, this is supposed to come in, we're supposed to be between this and this. But then the day comes, there it presents, and that can be a pretty substantial change, higher or lower. But that said, if it is necessary to have some type of, I don't know, restriction is really the wrong word, but guideline, then it would just have to be presented the next time, So I understand the need to have it enough to peruse it, to think about it. It's just kind of logistics. And I would say that as long as I'm here, that our effort will always be to have it in your hands so that you can review it as the council in the town. Again, we're kind of just getting going, Yeah, okay. So I have no problem with this, and I don't know if there was something specific that any of you wanted it to represent.
Louis or Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Okay.
I don't think any of this has to do with the current administration at the school. It
Okay,
has to do with past scenarios that have happened at the school that have led to a lot of these changes.
the ones I'm working on.
Yeah.
We're working on.
The reason for a lot of these changes isn't necessarily, like I said, for the current administration, but you're not always gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here forever,
Right, right.
40 years down the line, there may be a scenario where this is needed.
Right,
So that
right.
our biggest play is looking towards the future when all of us are not here.
Sure.
To
I-
make sure that they're followed.
And I think with that said, Matt, I think the language here is just enough to say we have to have it in our hands before we discuss it. I
Yes.
would ask that you give us a little bit of, playroom, but I'll always explain it to you.
Right.
Like when I come to the council, sometimes I talk too long, as you all know. But I'd like to be able to, I can tell you when the material comes in or when something changed, or Rhonda at the last minute was able to rerun these numbers and it's, an addition or a reduction,
Yes.
So as long as you have me and Rhonda, we will give you the information that goes with the change. But I think this is there's enough information here that would not put you in the position where you would have to, where you'd be asked to vote on something before you had all the details.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think the prerogative of which we were going is like a draft, not necessarily
Yeah.
like a final copy. This
Yeah.
is what's gonna be. I think it's more of just an overlay
Yeah.
of what's possible.
And what you already know from this year and last year is we have multiple paths. Like we label them so that and where our process that we're doing is highlight the change from draft to draft so that it becomes a quicker visual for everybody. So, yeah, we're okay with that, right? Yeah.
Dr. Lane also pointed out that their meetings,
Whose meetings?
school, their attendance is slim.
Right.
So certainly, anyone in the town, one of the councilors that's interested, can view these budget sessions as they happen.
And I do, and I can tell you, they are every single time. She'll say, this is the first update, and then the next school board meeting, she's going to say it's the second update, and the third, and the
Right.
fourth. But she always tells what the update, what number it is, and what she's updating.
And I will say, only having been here 2 years now, I did get some phone calls from citizens this year who just wanted to talk about certain things related to the budget in the school. So as our communication and our relationship with community members grows, I think that, we have the opportunity to positively impact that. And maybe even though we're not all going to be here for a long time or forever, I guess, if we can build that capacity so that people know it's okay to call and ask questions, I encourage that. Hopefully the next candidate that you get after us will too. So,
Dr. Lane was also of the opinion that the days of huge billion-dollar grants are behind us.
yeah.
The process has been changed and they're now submitting expenditures and being reimbursed. Was it on a monthly basis, more or less?
Yeah, every 30 days, and then and then by 3-month periods. I brought in, I think I brought this before when we met, that there is Edgar. I don't know if everybody can see, but there's Edgar. And this is 100% the rules that we follow for all the federal grants. But hopefully we will never be in that situation again, because COVID is what gave those huge grants, and towns all across the country really benefited from them. But, let's admit the fact that the numbers were swelled in towns and communities and did make it hard. I understand that. One example for you folks was the hot top job, right? I mean, over to the school, it looks beautiful, it's great, it's functional, but you put a lot of money out and you waited for it. I don't anticipate that will ever happen again. In my 34 years, I've never seen it except for COVID. I would say, and Dean and I did talk about the fact that if you wanted to, in a practice or a policy more than a charter piece, we could say if there are grants that are going to go over, pick a number, 600,000, 700,000, then we have different types of conversations between either this board or the council or something, so that we can be all on the same page for that. I don't think it will happen again. Honestly, I hope it doesn't happen again. But our money, it's gonna go back to more like 300,000 as a max with everything, with local entitlement, title.
To 150, because you haven't get all of them together, local time and
Food
food
service.
service.
Yeah.
And post
But the
450.
difference with them now is like, I don't even know if you know it, but some of like the local entitled money, that pays our payroll. So that keeps on coming in on a more routine basis. The huge sums of money, which I understand were troubling for the town, were things that were bridge repair. They're not gonna happen again, so. Yeah, so we had a good conversation over that, if I've left anything out.
Didn't mean to.
No, it's a good point.
405B, which is to inform the budget lines to state law. I think everyone's just seeing that now. But what you folks had used as budget lines were slightly different than what state had. So the draft has, follows the state statute very closely. So
That was one of the biggest things is when we looked at the original charter, it was off from what we talked about today.
Sure.
And so this is one of the reasons for bringing it up to state statutes.
and I don't think, Shelley needs a chance to review that and so forth, but I don't think they'll have any objection to it.
So I think what I hear you say is you're thinking that the state statutes is different than the blue that's on the paper?
So the blue is what you gave us.
Yes.
A year ago,
Yes.
and then Dean said it's a little different according to the state, and changed the draft according to what the state says it's
The
supposed to.
draft had 10 budget lines, the statute now has 11.
Okay,
And I didn't track it to see when the 11th was added. And the order of the line items was different in the statute than apparently what was used in the past.
all right, so they've added, so we have other instruction and extracurricular that is rolled into student and staff support. So if you see on the red turn to blue, I don't know exactly what everybody's looking at, but
That's an old draft. You really should look at the,
So this is the draft he made.
right.
This
This has what the state statute has. The 405 I passed out today.
I haven't. I think you gave me all the copies.
I was gonna say, I don't have a 405.
okay, so
You want to trade?
I got all 402. so.
Yeah.
the extracurricular.
I'll get it up.
So.
Shelley, do you have that one?
You have a 402? I don't have.
Here's a 402. Here's a 402.
The way that it looks. So the red version is kind of antiquated, it's just old. So
Yeah.
we updated it to the blue version,
Correct.
which is what, like, the books over there reflect.
Correct.
There's no problem to update it to this version if where the DOE lands now, because all the money that they give us in subsidy all lines up with these. So it won't do anything negative to our accounting, or reimbursement process.
Clear, comes time for budgeting, that this groups is these 11 line items.
Okay,
And so everything in your budget process lines up with those. It makes it clear for the residents as well as to understand exactly what each line represents.
sure.
And one other point.
I was gonna say, I don't see any. How are you recommending that we follow this order? Or does the order matter?
Well, I think it's much easier to follow that order. And keep in mind, this is really what regional school systems have to do. So they have line 6 for system administration and line 7 for school administration?
We do too.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's why you picked a good one, because that's exactly why I asked, because we start with the district level and then pare down to like the individual level, go through regular ed, special ed, facilities, and then end up with debt service. So like, that's the typical order. But I guess I would just need to know if I'm happy with you making this in the charter. If you want it to this order, just changes the explanation a little bit, because you kind of start system-wide and pare down.
Right.
This is a little bit all over the place, because if we talked regular instruction first, then special ed, then go to career and technical, our career and technical is just a couple of payments. So like, it just changes the narrative a little bit.
I think like Rick said, it's just to make everything uniform so that it matches state, it matches us, it matches you.
Okay.
So it's all uniform across the board.
That way there, when you're talking about the budget, that form, you're talking those same lines, said when the order for approval of that line, everybody is on the same page.
Yep. I think it's perfectly fine. Well, that's right. So for the council perspective, for everybody on the council, the chart that we use at the end that you folks all sign, and I guess the presentation you'll have to recognize that for the first year there will be no apples to apples. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, there will be, it will just kind of be a little bit of wonkiness until we get past that first year.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. We're totally good with putting things in that order.
You had a section 508, that was the one that would restrict the use of unencumbered carryovers. And at some point, you folks have to hopefully confirm that as a charter change is not necessary, that we'll use a memo of understanding or whatever.
The only concern with the memo of understanding is how frequently leadership changes. So especially with the council, like if we as a council or the current council does sign it, what's to say the next council won't adhere to it, or the next school board? That's the only concern that I have.
Well, that's a legitimate concern, but once again, that's going to be a difficult concept to put into the charter.
Okay.
Because of that reason.
Right. Once again, I would hate to see a situation where the charter requirement makes us default with a legal obligation of the town. That's not a good,
If it can't be so, it can't be so.
can't be a good result.
But
I
you
think,
still have to have a process in place. You still have to make sure that there's something that you can feel that you're working with and are not afraid that you're going to lose.
Right.
That's what you're looking for. It doesn't matter if it's in the charter itself, as long as there is a solid agreement that everyone can work through and get the
Right.
answers and the results that you want.
But me and you may agree to it, but if, let's say, Rick
That's right.
replaces me,
Yeah.
Rick may say, I'm absolutely
Yeah.
not following that.
And so much stuff just gets forgotten. I mean, there's no maliciousness to it at all. It just keeps changing. It keeps changing. And
I think if I can add on to that, there really are some processes in place, because the audit process is one of those things that's in place. And that is very detailed, and it has a lot of like organic regulations and rules right with that. The fact that something is missed, or how to say it, something is missed or not aligned for a year or two doesn't negate the fact that the process was still there, the requirement was still there. And there's also a lot of just in general laws and regulations. And again, my same statement, just because it was missed for a year or whatever, doesn't mean it's not there. So you really do have protections there. And I think now that, we're kind of on track and things are rolling, we'll just make sure that whoever comes in and does the next things understands that what was done before is what we want to continue. And that's kind of normal, you know, it
And-
can be.
And I can see that is all true. It's been a long time since I've served on the council. And
Yeah.
I've made it a point to kind of step back from it. But the issue with that at the meeting has been, there's been a lack of trust between the school department and the town. And what we need is a process that ensures that if there is a mistake, we just, or not a mistake, but if there's an issue, just say, here's what it is. And the
Right.
town will say, okay, because we've worked so closely
Right,
that everyone's trusting each other.
right.
That hasn't been here. And as far as I can tell, that's mostly why this is going on to kind of alleviate that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really poignant point. And I wasn't part of all of
No,
that when it
that's right.
started. But you can't write trust in a policy or in a charter.
That's right.
We have to rely on those rules and like regulations. And then the rest, everybody on the screen and everybody here and everybody attending all of our meetings. I mean, like, we're working on that. And our message for our on the school side is all to be communicative and positive. And when the council says to me, because I asked, like, what happens if I, don't have something or expense comes up and they say, I've got your back? We will continue to support that thinking. Because you can't, you can write what you just said in and you're not wrong,
That's right.
but it's not going to, it's
That's
the
right.
laws and the regulations
That's right.
that already do exist that are gonna actually protect the town.
And in fairness, I believe that the school board has felt the same lack of trust and
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a pervasive thing and it's in the way.
It is in the way.
So
Well said.
that's what makes this so valuable and
Yeah.
Dean's ideas of where to put things in different places, still be effective
Yeah.
is, I like it. I like the process so far.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, one of the things is every year, the chairman of the council always selects what portion of the budget is going to be audited. Like, the school budget may be the administration, for example.
Yeah.
That they want to do a deep dive on that section of the audit. The chairman of the council always has that, he has that, or she have that privilege of selecting what is going to be deep dived on
Yeah.
that year. So that does give you the council that ability to say, these are what I'd like to see from the town side. We change bookkeepers, so we want to do a deep dive on the bookkeeping.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So that's what I'm saying is, when it comes to what is checked with that audit is based on what the council chair has selected to audit.
Yeah, so they have some input. Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Posted.
Well, are there any other school issues that you want to discuss?
I think the last time we met, we were pretty much in agreement on everything, and it's good to have this talk a year later and to revisit this and understand what actually. It's very insightful. Like you said, I think if before there was a lot of trust issues, Dean kind of alluded to hell freezing over, and that almost happened twice. So I think it's important to have these discussions with the school, which is one of the main reasons why we invited you guys to open up that communication. And I hope that continues with the council to the school board. I do think that trust will ultimately end up being the two parties that are involved. Like you said, I don't think a policy can ever change that. But I do think prevent pitfalls from happening.
Of course.
So I think that's the whole reason for this, is just to prevent that from happening in the future.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with you that a policy cannot end trust.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I mean, all the points made around the table are very valid. You've lived through it. Ron and I kind of like popped in, right? But you've lived through it, so that's different.
The popping in came at a great time.
I think we were dived in.
Is that what we did? But I think if we just remember that, the safeguards really are there. It's just recognizing what they are along the way.
Lee or Bob have any comments or questions for Dr. Lane?
No, I'm fine. It's a good discussion.
I was gonna say, you're in the hospital. How fine can you
I
be?
know.
I appreciate them coming and talking with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Rhonda and I are really trying to write this cart, this boat that we're working on. And these conversations that we have with all of you do give us insight to the needs of the town, kind of the past of the town. And we know that ultimately on the school side, we're looking for what's best for our kids. And we know that that's everything from hot top projects to new staff, new textbooks, new programs. And we are working on all of those things. So we appreciate you inviting us to the table.
Well, if you folks want to, you're certainly welcome to stay as we go through the other sections.
Okay.
I think we've got the direction I need, I think.
Okay.
on those.
I think we will exit because she has a 2.5-hour ride. So I'm gonna let her get home, hopefully in daylight time. So, but we're happy to stay as long as you want us to.
Thank
No,
you.
that's fine. Thank you.
By the way, I'm Cam and Missions.
I know. Hi, nice to see you. Cam said, I think my brother's gonna be there. We. Yeah, she is a teach for sure.
I can see that.
She's a good girl. Oh.
What life did you get in yet? Yeah. It was trickle down. I was the oldest, she was the youngest. She got it all. My parents pointing it out to us.
I'd say your parents did a great job. Thank you very much. You know where to find us if something comes up later in the conversation. We'll be right there. Thank you very much.
We'll copy you on future copies.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Louis, I hope you get out safely tomorrow.
I will. Don't worry.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Drive carefully.
I will.
Many people have copies of C-202. Someone must have got all of the C-202s.
It's the board. Forward.
I got
Oh, you wait a minute.
Which one do you have, Peter?
Okay, I've got more than one C-202. What? Wait a minute. Wait a-
Oh, CO2 over there.
You can keep. Don't want it.
I couldn't wait for that one.
I've got this one. 3 pages, but I got.
Well, I must have it here. All right. Here.
We're gonna share these ones.
Wally, have you got 202?
I have one. I do.
202?
202. Oh, I got that one.
202.
Oh, no, I like that.
202.
Okay, 202. I added in bold type. Upon expiration of any appeal period following conviction of felony, with no appeal being filed or upon a final decision resolving any and all appeals. So pending an appeal, the counselor or the school board member seat would not be vacant. And that is to protect us from.
Can I interrupt you? Those of you on Zoom, are you looking at my security cameras or the C-202 document?
The document.
Oh, cool. That's neat.
Good to know.
That is to avoid a situation in which someone's convicted and they've appealed, they lose the appeal, and the town didn't even know about any of this. That person continued to vote after the court found them guilty in the first place. So we want to make sure that any of those 4-3 decisions or decisions in which the person who was convicted was in the majority, we want to avoid anyone saying, well, this order is not valid because his seat was vacant. Because a real problem here is the council has to know about the conviction. Otherwise, how are you gonna know the seat is vacant?
Right.
So that's, anyone has any comments,
I like it.
let me know, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, next is C, I think 204.
I have a 204. Thank you.
Everyone's got a 204?
Don't understand.
I've got one. Thank you.
All right, 204 is the original draft to authorize the council to place a department head on paid leave pending an investigation. That is obviously in conflict with the charter provision that the council deal with the administrative service solely through the town manager. So I didn't know if you had copies of that with you, so I distributed that. I also distributed an amendment to the personnel policy.
Yes.
Has everyone got copies of that? This one.
Providing. It
I
was
did
a
not
separate,
know that.
it was a separate sheet.
Oops, sorry, that's-
Which one do you want? There.
Let me give you
Amendment or the,
The amendments to the personnel policy.
You got that one. Thank you.
Well, as opposed to amending the charter and adding that provision, I suggested that the council pass, and that you recommend that the council pass an order directing the town manager to draft an amendment to the personnel policy to give the town manager the explicit written authority to place any town employee, and we're just talking non-union employees, not union employees, on paid leave pending an investigation. And as part of that draft, I would expect a standard for when you would do that. Once again, department heads in particular can be subject to unfounded complaints by employees.
Or by the community.
Or the community, and
We've all run into that, I'm sure.
well, it disrupts the administrative service. If, hey, you go home with pay while we figure out what's going on, and oh, by the way, that may take the next 9 months. Okay, so I think it makes a little bit more sense to address this issue. I'm not minimizing the issue through an amendment of personnel policy as opposed to changing the charter, and the charter is then in conflict with itself. And if that's later determined to be a revision as opposed to an amendment, because it is in conflict, then it may not, a court could throw it out altogether.
This was an important issue in the discussions, that everyone, especially all the sitting councilors felt quite strongly about it. Is this an extraordinary thing? Is this like nobody else is doing this?
I would put it in that category.
I'd like to hear Peter's comments on this. This directly reflects it.
Yeah, because it goes to the manager who is hired by the council to oversee and run the operation of the town. All right, so that puts this on the responsibility of the manager to make sure if there's an issue with one of the department heads, then it's something that HR has to get involved with, as well as the manager, to sort out and correct.
Rick's absolutely right. This is a council manager form of government. This. There's this separation.
Or anything, anybody talking there? I lost it.
Oh, we're still here. Can you hear us?
But
I
yeah,
can hear
yeah,
you.
kind of,
It froze up for a minute.
Basically,
Was Peter saying something that I missed?
okay. That was, I laughed while I said that. It was okay. Can you hear me, Louis?
Now I can.
Ah, wonderful. I was explaining that I agreed with what Rick said.
Oh,
I think it should remain separate from elected officials, and is in line with the duties of the one employee they have to perform their administrative duties.
well, I can agree to that with, and all administration, but when it comes to department heads, and it's a department issue, like, I would think the manager would have constraints that might, tend to lead him not to, like, budgetary. Like Dean was pointing, the guy could be on, administrative leave for 9 months, and then it's a big budgetary issue for the manager, and that might dissuade him from, putting a manager out on leave when it's really causing problems elsewhere, like with the public or within the department.
Well, I would think that would be for the administrator to figure out. They could, the council trusts their selection for that administrator, then they should be trusting that that person can solve that problem.
Well, I think it's a little different issue when it comes to a department issue versus just a staff issue. And
Well, Louis, can I add something?
yes,
My
Please.
my proposal is that the council add to the personnel policy authority for the town manager to suspend any town employee, non-union, pending an investigation. That explicit authority is not there now, okay?
it's,
And
Oh.
the exact terms and conditions of that authority is going to be developed by the town manager and approved or changed by the town council when it gets to the council. Because what the order says is the town manager will draft an appropriate amendment, meet with the delegate of the non-union employees, which is what the personnel policy requires, and then present that draft to the council with his recommendation. Now, town managers propose, the council disposes. So if you don't like the exact wording that's recommended to you, you always have the authority to change that through the council adoption process. Somebody makes a motion to amend, it's seconded, it's discussed. If that passes, then the order under consideration is the order as amended. So I'm not trying, we're trying to address the issue, and it's going to be up to the council whether the proposal that gets to you meets your concerns. Okay?
okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
my concern with it is that right now, in a situation where there's a department head that is right in the forefront, it's in everyone's mind, the councilors are talking about them, supporting them, not supporting them, all of that. Right now, your only option is fire the manager, hire a new manager that will get rid of that department head for you. It's like a big hammer, heavy-handed way of handling it. That's the mechanism for it now. And what they're looking for is a way to make sure, like, the manager still needs to be in charge, but they're looking for a voice for the council to be able to ensure that this action happens. we don't, I mean, we don't want to have to go from one heavy-handed mechanism to another, you know?
Well, I guess that the amendment to the personnel policy could, well, first of all, you folks can clarify, do you want this to apply to all non-union employees or just department heads? Okay, I would think a situation could come up with a non-department head that causes very serious concerns to people. Okay, so that needs to be clarified. Then, I don't think it's beyond the realm of reason. The council could amend the personnel policy to simply say, if a department head is accused, if a complaint is received concerning a department head, that department head will be suspended with pay pending the outcome of an investigation in any personnel disciplinary proceeding. Okay. The council would have that authority. Now, whether or not the council should go that far, as opposed to giving that authority to the town manager, would ultimately be up to the
It should be a real big decision. It should be an
and that's
intense
why,
deliberation before doing anything like
that's
that.
why it cannot be like pornography. The original justice said,
Yeah,
I can't define it, but I know when I see
you
it.
know it when I see it. Yeah.
In fairness to department heads or town employees or whoever might be affected by this, is a written standard of when this complaint, founded or not, because we haven't done an investigation, but just the fact that the complaint has been made is serious enough to suspend somebody with pay and everything that goes along the repercussions of a suspension. And once again, I don't expect you folks to make a decision right now. You certainly can.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, at some point, each one of these drafts, you folks are gonna have to say, we approve this draft and want it sent to the council. Okay? So really, the order to amend the personnel policy is the first time you've seen that. Okay? And we all agree it's a complex subject. So I think it's just food for thought. And, give it some thought, and then ultimately you're gonna make a decision.
It's not going to be a tool for me because I won't be on the council, but this seems like a sensible and reasonable solution to the discussion that I sat here through, to me.
You're talking about amending the personnel
Amending the
policy,
personnel policy.
just so everyone would be clear.
I agree with that.
You and Louis are gonna have to be able to explain it to the rest of the council. You're gonna, if you agree with it, to be able to say, here's why I like it, or here's why I don't.
I think we should definitely meet again and discuss this a little bit more in depth as a whole committee. Cause I have some thinking to do before I make a decision on this.
Right, you've gotta take and what are some that we'd have to create in this change in the personnel policy that would support what everybody wants to see.
Just to confirm this amendment of the personnel policy, this is just saying that something will be made. This isn't saying,
What that does is put on the town manager in consultation with the human resources director and myself or my replacement, die next tomorrow, to draft an amendment, the actual words. And something that has to be struggled with is a written standard. Okay, somebody's made a complaint. It might be sexual harassment. It could be drunk driving.
Yep.
It could be any number of things. Then the next thing you've got to decide is, does this standard apply to the public works director? How about the wastewater treatment plant director?
Code enforcement officer.
Code enforcement.
You, any one of those departments. gonna
So
happen.
we could agree with this, but once we get a finalized policy, we could completely hate it, is what I'm getting at. So this is just like a stepping stone.
What this is committee's recommendation to
Right.
council.
I meant if the council passes it, it's still a stepping stone, because the policy has to be, and then repassed for the
Well,
council.
But
come
at
back
that
to,
point, if I'm understanding,
Correct. It would be
it would
you,
be
the
council
town,
that-
well, and then,
Yes.
and then the council.
correct.
You know, the town manager would have the responsibility to draft the exact wording that's gonna go into the personnel policy. And then it's up to the council to either agree with that draft, change that draft, or whatever, you know, whatever.
If that's the case, then I'm in favor. It's basically, it puts it in the council's.
Right.
Okay,
This is just the first step in that process.
okay. That makes more sense.
But it gives you a tool that you can use in the end.
I think it will very much depend on the wording that's created in that policy, if that's passed. Like Dean said, it's a very, very fine tooth. You have to be very careful.
Anytime you're dealing with personnel, you
Yeah.
have to be very, very careful.
Of course, yeah. Okay, next is C 205, which is primarily council compensation. Even though my email said it's been revised, it's just really been cleaned up. Substantively, it's the same as was circulated at our last meeting. Now, next is C 301, in which I deleted the business about a nautical mile. So now that within 6 months, the town manager will establish a residence within a safe commuting distance of the town of Illinois.
I don't know if you watched the video from the last one.
No.
Basically, what we came down to, it was redundant. If you watch the video, we go way in deeper discussion on it, but basically it boiled down to a commutable safe distance is the answer versus expanding.
But what is it? Beautiful, beauty, safe distance. Safe
That's for the
community
council to determine.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a hard and fast so many miles.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, you folks had pretty complete discussion of that at the last meeting.
Wise person told me once, he with the most options wins. And that's a simple truth. The more specific you make this, the fewer options you have.
Less
You know?
is more.
The chances of getting the person you want.
That's right. That's right. And keeping the person you want and keeping a harmonious working relationship, everything that's good.
In that case, I do agree. I think the way that it's outlined is perfect.
Next, C 402, of course, Dr. Lane said those changes are fine. First time you've seen this, just mirrors what we did.
Or two.
We talked about it in the
That's what we
beginning.
just talked
Yeah,
about.
but I'm.
You don't have a copy?
It's 402.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. 405B, we discussed with Dr. Lane and to review that.
The biggest thing with that whole thing is the numbering system, because when it comes time for the orders to approve the school budget, each one of those is a line item that you vote on.
Right.
Those were so far out of alignment of the old charter to what today's law is. So
I agree, and I think we made.
agreed. Yes, she was very supportive of it. So
And everyone sees the reason to it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I think out of all the changes we did, I think that's the one that makes the most sense.
On 601, which deals with revaluing the town from time to time. I haven't had a chance to talk to the assessor. I emailed her this morning
You say 301?
No, 601.
601.
Don't have that one. here.
So we're gonna,
Oh, okay.
we'll circle
Yeah, I
back.
don't-
to that.
Yes, as soon as I talk to her, I'll do that. I can tell you, I know there's been concern about, not having timely revaluations. I can tell you the reality. Over 10 years ago, I forget how long, with great effort, I lobbied to get money in the budget for a reval. I think it was $250,000, as I recall. And unfortunately, subsequent councils used that as a funding mechanism for a number of different projects, which simply meant each year when the budget came up, it didn't meet their list of priorities. Okay? But I do want to talk to Lorna before I draft something on that. And that's the same thing with the a new C-1010 municipal documents. I will put something together on that.
I did have time to think about that section, and I stand firm with what I said before. I'm afraid that if we leave it to put it in the zoning ordinance, or we leave it to put it into the comprehensive plan, it's never gonna get done. That's my biggest concern. I went back and I thought about it. And I am standing firm that I think it should be in the charter as another reassurance it
Then
needs. to be done.
I will draft one, for your review. Since the last meeting, I also called the Lincoln News. We do have to publish these changes in a newspaper. Our charter is 52 pages long, okay? At least the document you folks are sending me. You take changing shall to will. I would assume that changes almost every section.
Every section minus like 2.
Okay. That is really a separate change from changing councilman, counselor. That is making something gender neutral. Shall to will is a clarification. So they're each going to be separate amendments. Obviously, we're going to have about 10 of these things or close to it. I've just tried to visualize how we print that in the Lincoln News, and it's going to be exceedingly expensive. So I asked them, and I'm sure if we want to have an extra 10 pages of small print devoted to this, they'll sell us the ad space. I asked them if they had the capability to make a pamphlet and insert.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we don't. So, yes.
Recently, you and I had talked about advertising the message, changes.
I reviewed that, Peter.
It has to be done in the paper.
Well, I'll read the statute.
While you're looking, how much did they say it would cost?
We didn't get that far because we don't know how many pages. It says, municipal officers may determine that amendments to the charter should be considered. By order, provide notice and hearing on them in the same manner as subsection 5 further in. Well, I guess I gotta go with that one. I love this statute. You can just fit all day going back and forth. That one says, the municipal officers shall provide for public hearing on the proposed amendment. At least 7 days before the hearing, they shall publish a notice of hearing. The notice must contain the text of the proposed amendment and a brief explanation. We don't have to do that for the ballots. We can have a summary on the ballots. But unfortunately, we've got to publish changes of the exact wording and an explanation.
But it has to be in the paper.
That's what it says. This has not been updated to reflect today's reality.
Somebody go find the state, whoever's in charge of that.
It doesn't say, or post it on your website and provide copies in the town. It doesn't say that. It says, will publish in a newspaper. So I think that is.
Is there any value in issuing?
Legislature meets in January.
Well, I mean, is there a, you know, legal employee of the state that could get this?
Fellows.
Can we publish our own newspaper?
For what?
No. One issue?
One issue.
One issue?
newspaper?
Can we, a brochure, what's the difference between that and the brochure? Can we publish a Millinocket Town Council paper?
Newspaper having general circulation in the municipality. Okay. I would think you'd have to be a newspaper. That we couldn't, you would, you know, once again, it doesn't give you the option of mailing to every person in town.
Yeah.
Newspaper. Right.
Or,
I do
or,
like. the
or
idea
print
that you're-
off a ton of them and take them up to Shop and Save and put them in bags, you know, hand them to people as they go, have them here.
Well, once again, it's an issue.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I don't think it's nearly as important with the gender neutral thing, because the councilmen are only mentioned in so many sections.
I think there was 32, something like
Okay, well, once again, you know, that's doable. That's better than 52 plus 32. Right. Okay. So we'd be cutting it down a lot. And once again, I mean, you can revisit the issue. Are we really making any kind of a change, changing shall to will?
that. I would still like to see the cost and do it, maybe like what Peter said, and reach out and find out if the
Alright.
state.
Well, I've got to obviously put that draft together. It's going to take a little time. Okay. But I think that pretty much goes through all the drafts and the issues. Okay. I will be out of state the rest of this week. Probably won't be back till next Monday or Tuesday. I'm not really sure yet. As soon as I get back, I'll do the drafts, circulate them. The election is on November 5th. The council has to act to put what is on the ballot at least 30 days in advance. So we're talking about probably the last meeting in September. Okay. And of course, a meeting before that, I think we will need to pass the order to send things out, you know, publish things and all that. And I will hit that deadline pretty easy. So I think you're going to have at least one more meeting in the late August, early September timeframe. And it's going to go to the council. It'll be on the next council agenda. The first page of these orders. Or page one, if the order on page one is 2 pages, that's going to be 2 pages. If it's 1 page, it's 1 page. That's what's going to be in the agenda. I did the public notice for the clerk, so it'll be much quicker, you know, for her. And then council will have the public hearing, and I would assume all you folks will be in attendance for that to help answer questions. Then the council will send things to referendum.
Okay, so wait to hear from you on the other drafts. Then meet again to discuss how we all feel about the drafts, then send to the council.
Yes, and if you, in the interim, if you want to have another meeting and go over, you know, if some of these drafts you think.
Find an issue or something to think about.
Go ahead and have a meeting and discuss them, and if you think they're final and they're okay, we approve that amendment, we approve this amendment. They're all gonna be on the ballot on the same day, but this procedure to go through these hoops doesn't have to.
This would be an opportunity to reach out to the state and say, hey, your statutes are as antique as we are.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I
Think the same thing.
can tell you this was quite a fight over the legislature could stop publishing administrative rules in the newspaper, rules changes. I noticed I still do some of them in the newspaper, so the newspaper is like pretty good hold on it.
So would Wally's option work? Like, could we make our own newspaper?
They come a license paper business.
But does it say that?
Well, it says a newspaper of general circulation.
General
I
circulation.
would say the term newspaper.
They are shooting for an existing newspaper that publishes regularly.
Ours is not to question why.
Yeah,
Ours
no,
is to
then,
do or die.
and fair is fair, that when the council has rules, we want the spirit of them followed.
Right.
And not just the letter of the law. Don't be looking for ways around things. Here's what people feel should be done. You should be doing that. Same thing with this, you know.
So, any
Well, I still
questions
don't
for
mind
me
tonight
for
and work.
from anybody?
Louis,
Pardon? No, I'm fine.
Bob?
I'm fine. I'm gonna let it soak in.
Like taking a shower. Okay, so, next meeting date. We wanna wait until Dean gives us the drafts and then we can have another meeting date set for that.
I think, yes.
I think it would be beneficial to do it all at once versus have.
Okay. So Dean, when you give us the draft, we will,
I'm thinking we're gonna meet the last week in September. I don't know the exact day yet. But I hope to be back here by the 19th. I would hope to have things drafted to you by the couple of days later.
Okay, so we can meet by that. Yeah, if that won't be hard to meet at all. I mean, if how many more drafts do you have? Like 3 or 4?
Well, I've got a couple of new ones
Right.
to do, and quite frankly, the Shelter Will one, that is gonna take some time. Because, I've got I get to put those sections, every section is being changed, I've got to put into these orders and public notice and all that type of thing. And then that, it take well down near an hour to produce one of these things. Simply because it's a time, requires some thought.
Sure.
Right.
Some research.
And once you get that, try and come up.
any more questions?
Can we go home?
Next thing on the agenda is adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Louis, I look forward to hearing about you being home.
All in favor?
Yeah. Thank you.
Aye,
Aye,
Aye.
aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.